You apologize when a stranger bumps into you. You laugh half a second too early. Your stomach drops the moment someone types the words, "We need to talk." None of it feels like a clue. It feels like personality. It feels like just the way you are. But some of the smallest, most automatic things you do every day were never really choices. They were answers. Answers to a question your nervous system asked a long time ago, in a moment you may not even remember. What if the habits you call quirks are actually old survival strategies that forgot to switch themselves off? Start with the apology. You knock a cup that doesn't fall. You say sorry to a chair. You apologize for asking a question, for taking up space, for existing slightly louder than you meant to. People around you might find it charming. You might find it embarrassing. But there is a reason that word leaves your mouth before you've decided to say it. In a home where someone was unpredictable, an apology was a tool. A fast, reflexive sorry could lower the temperature in a room before things got worse. A child who learns to say it first and say it often gets hurt a little less. So the brain keeps the tool. It just stops telling you why you're still carrying it. Therapist Pete Walker gave this pattern a name. We all know fight and flight. Some of us know freeze. Walker described a fourth response, one he called fawn. Fawning is what happens when you can't fight the threat and you can't run from it, because the threat is the same person you depend on for love. So you do the only thing left. You please. You soothe. You make yourself useful, agreeable, small. You merge with what everyone else wants and quietly lose track of what you want. Here's the part that surprises people. Fawning doesn't look like fear. It looks like kindness. It looks like the friend who never says no, the colleague who absorbs everyone else's stress, the partner who somehow always ends up apologizing first. The world rewards it, and that reward is exactly why it stays hidden for so long. But why does the body cling to a strategy long after the danger is gone? Why can't you just decide to stop? To answer that, you have to understand how your nervous system actually keeps you alive. A researcher named Stephen Porges spent decades studying the vagus nerve, the long wandering nerve that connects your brain to your heart, your lungs, your gut. His work, called polyvagal theory, describes something important. Your body is constantly scanning the room beneath your conscious awareness, asking one question over and over. Am I safe right now? It does this faster than thought. It does this before you've noticed a single thing, and when it decides the answer is no, it acts without waiting for your permission. A raised voice, a certain footstep, a particular silence at the dinner table. Your body reacts to the echo before your mind has even recognized the sound. That's why you can't just decide to stop. The reaction is happening below the floor of decision. Now look at the next habit, hypervigilance. You walk into a room and instantly clock every exit. You read faces like weather reports, catching the smallest shift in someone's mood. You can feel when a person across the room is upset before they've said a word. People call this intuition. Sometimes it's something quieter and heavier than that. A child in an unstable home becomes a tiny expert in human emotion because reading the adults correctly is a matter of safety. Is dad in a good mood or a dangerous one? Is the quiet a peaceful quiet or the kind that breaks? You learn to scan, you learn to predict, and you get so good at it that years later you can't turn it off. Your superpower and your exhaustion are the same skill. Then there's the flinch. Someone raises a hand to wave and a part of you braces. A door slams 2 rooms away and your whole body jolts like a struck bell. Psychiatrist Bessel van der Kolk wrote an entire book about this, and its title says everything. The body keeps the score. His central idea is that trauma isn't only stored as a memory you can talk about. It's stored in the body, in muscle and breath and reflex, in a place words can't easily reach. You might not remember the moment that taught you to flinch. Your shoulders remember it perfectly. Have you ever noticed how hard it is to relax even when nothing is wrong? That's the next one. You're safe. You're comfortable. Nothing is happening. And still some engine inside you keeps running, scanning for the catch, waiting for the other shoe to drop. For a nervous system that grew up bracing, calm doesn't register as peace. Calm registers as the quiet before something bad. So you stay a little tense, a little ready, because readiness once kept you alive. This is where a landmark piece of research enters the story. In the 1990s, a doctor named Vincent Felitti was running an obesity clinic and couldn't understand why so many patients dropped out just as they were succeeding. When he actually listened, a pattern emerged that he hadn't gone looking for. So many of them had survived something in childhood. Felitti teamed up with a CDC epidemiologist named Robert Anda. and together they launched what became known as the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study. They surveyed more than 17,000 adults. What they found reshaped modern medicine. The more adversity a person experienced as a child, the higher their risk of depression, addiction, heart disease, and early death decades later. The connection wasn't vague or poetic. It was a dose. More of one, more of the other. Childhood was leaving fingerprints on the adult body. Fingerprints you could measure in a doctor's office 50 years later. So when your body refuses to relax, it isn't being dramatic. It's running on programming that was written early and written deep. Let's keep going because the habits get stranger and more specific. You over-explain. Someone asks a simple question and you deliver a paragraph, complete with reasons and evidence and reassurance, as if you're defending yourself in a courtroom no one else can see. Why? Because somewhere along the way, a plain answer wasn't enough. A simple, "I forgot," got you punished. So you learned to build a case. You learned to justify before you were accused. Or you do the opposite. You go quiet. You shrink. You become so easy to be around that people forget you're in the room. And that too was once a strategy. If being noticed meant being targeted, then being invisible meant being safe. You taught yourself to disappear in plain sight, and you got so good at it that you're still doing it in rooms where you're completely welcome. Then there's the one that confuses people the most. You expect the worst at exactly the moment things are going well. You get the job, and you wait to be fired. You fall in love, and you wait to be left. Good news doesn't feel like relief, it feels like a setup. For a brain that learned that good moments are usually followed by bad ones, hope itself starts to feel dangerous. So you brace during the very moments you should be able to enjoy. You protect yourself from a disappointment that hasn't come and may never come at all. Why would a mind work against its own happiness like this? Because it isn't trying to make you happy. It's trying to keep you alive. And those are not the same job. Consider one more, the people-pleasing that runs so deep, you've lost the thread of your own wants. Someone asks where you'd like to eat, and your honest answer is, "I don't know, where do you want to go?" Not because you're easygoing, because at some point, having a preference felt risky, and wanting something out loud felt like an invitation to be denied or mocked, so you outsourced your desires to whoever was in the room. The psychologist Shelley Taylor described a stress response she called tend and befriend, a deep human instinct to survive threat by caring for others and strengthening bonds. It's a beautiful instinct. But under chronic fear, a beautiful instinct can curdle into a cage. Caring for everyone becomes the only way you know how to feel safe, and your own needs quietly starve. Here's what I most want you to hear, because this is where the story turns. None of this means you're broken, it means you adapted. Every one of these habits was, at one time, an act of brilliance. A small mind facing a situation too big for it, finding a way through. The apology, the scanning, the flinch, the bracing, the disappearing. These were not flaws. They were a child doing the most intelligent thing available with the tools they had. The judgment we should feel isn't shame. It's something closer to awe. The trauma researcher Judith Herman wrote that recovery happens in connection with others, never in isolation. And that's the quiet hope buried in all of this. A nervous system that learned fear from people can also learn safety from people. The same wiring that once recorded danger can slowly record something new. A steady voice. A relationship that doesn't end when you have a need. A room where your honest opinion is met with curiosity instead of contempt. It is slow, it is not a switch you flip, but the body that kept the score can also, with time and safety, begin to settle that old account. And one more thing, because it matters. Not every habit on this list means you survive something terrible. People apologize for 1,000 reasons. People are quiet because they're thinking. A reflex is not a diagnosis, and a video is not a therapist. What this is instead is permission. Permission to look at the strangest, most automatic parts of yourself with a little less judgment and a little more curiosity. To ask gently, where did I first learn to do this? And to consider that the answer might not be a flaw in you at all. It might be a younger version of you, still standing guard long after the danger has passed. So the next time you apologize to a chair, the next time you brace for bad news that doesn't come, the next time you laugh half a second too early, don't roll your eyes at yourself. Listen. Because that reflexive sorry, that early laugh, that flicker of dread you couldn't explain, were never just quirks. They were a message. And now finally, you know what they were trying to say.